Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to unpack how this Augustinian friar, Gregor Mendel, how he revolutionized our understanding of inheritance and, became the father of modern genetics.
It's an incredible story, really, yeah. When you consider how his work with pea plants, it was meticulous, right? And it challenged this idea, like this widely accepted notion of blending inheritance, like back in the mid-1800s.
Okay, so blending inheritance. Let's
Yeah.
unpack that a little. So what were scientists believing back then?
Okay, so imagine like mixing paint.
Yeah.
They thought that traits in offspring were just an average of their parents' traits.
Okay.
So yeah, like a tall parent and a short parent would always have a medium height child.
So they just blended together or something?
Yeah, they thought so.
It seems so simple now when you look back at it.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Mendel would prove that, inheritance was much more intricate than simply blending.
Right. Now, I know Mendel was a monk,
Oh,
obviously. But he was clearly much more than that. He had a strong background in, science, right?
Absolutely. He wasn't just a man of faith. He studied philosophy and physics at university, actually taught physics and natural science.
Yeah.
The scientific foundation, that was, crucial to his methodical approach.
So it wasn't just divine intervention or something leading him to these groundbreaking discoveries.
Yeah.
There was a solid scientific mind at work here.
Exactly, yeah. He approached his experiments with a rigor. That was remarkable for his time.
Yeah. Let's go back to his early life for a moment. So he was born in 1822 to a farming family in what is now the Czech Republic. And he even worked as a gardener and a beekeeper before entering the monastery.
Right, right. You could say that, those early experiences with plants and nature, planted the seeds, so to speak.
Yeah.
For his later fascination with inheritance.
That's good. I like that. But his path to the monastery, it wasn't easy, was it?
No, it wasn't. He had, financial struggles. He was looking for solace, purpose. He found it in the monastic life at St. Thomas's Abbey in Brno. But even within, those peaceful walls, his scientific curiosity, it was flourishing.
Okay, so picture this, right? Mendel's in the Abbey's experimental garden. It's a sprawling space, almost 5 acres. So why peas? Why, out of all the plants, why peas?
Well, peas were, they were a really good choice for several reasons, actually. They're easy to cultivate, they have a relatively short generation time, and they produce lots of offspring, giving him ample data.
Ah, so he could really see the patterns with a large sample size.
Exactly, yeah. Plus, and this is key, he could control their pollination, ensuring the accuracy. He wasn't leaving anything to chance.
He sounds like a really meticulous researcher. Did he study every single trait of the pea plants?
He narrowed his focus to 7 specific traits. They appeared to be inherited independently. Things like seed shape, flower color, plant height. Smart. Isolating those variables would give him much clearer results, right?
Precisely. He meticulously crossbred thousands of plants over 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah, painstakingly recording the traits of each generation.
Wow, 8 years. That's some dedication.
Yeah.
And all this work, all this meticulous work led him to this groundbreaking paper, Experiments on Plant Hybridization. Presented that in 1865. What was the reaction to his findings? What did the scientific community, how did they react?
Well, this is where the story gets a little bittersweet, Despite the groundbreaking nature of his work, the scientific community, they kind of overlooked his findings, his paper. It was published in a relatively obscure journal, and it just didn't get the attention that it deserved.
So this work, which would later become the foundation of modern genetics, was ignored.
Essentially, yeah. It's a scientific tragedy almost.
Yeah.
The world just wasn't ready to grasp what he had discovered. It's amazing to think this monk working quietly in his garden, he unlocked these fundamental secrets of life, and it just stayed hidden. So what were these revolutionary ideas? What were these core concepts that he established?
So his experiments, led him to establish this idea of dominant and recessive traits. So he observed that certain traits would mask the expression of others in the first generation. So he called these dominant traits. The ones that seemed to disappear, he called recessive. But the interesting thing was these hidden traits, they would reappear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in subsequent generations and in very predictable ratios.
Wait, so a trait could vanish and then come back later?
Yeah.
That's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it at the time.
Yeah.
So how did he explain that? How did he explain this disappearing, reappearing trait thing?
So through, meticulous observation and analysis, He proposed that each parent plant, it contributed one factor, what we now call a gene, for each trait. And these factors, they separated during the formation of gametes, the sex cells. So each gamete carries just one factor for each trait.
So it's like each parent's contributing half the genetic information.
Exactly. And he called this the law of segregation.
Okay.
It's one of the cornerstones, of,
Right.
of modern genetics.
Okay. So I think I'm getting the basics of inheritance now.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't stop there, right? Didn't he also discover something about how different traits are inherited?
Yes, he did. Through further experiments, he discovered that different traits, like seed shape, flower color, they were inherited independently of each other.
Okay.
So he called this the law of independent assortment. For example, inheriting a particular seed shape didn't dictate what flower color the plant would have.
Right, that makes sense. So they weren't all linked together somehow. They were inherited as separate units.
Exactly. And that was a huge breakthrough in understanding, the complexity of inheritance. But sadly, despite, the significance of these discoveries, his work remained largely unknown during his lifetime.
It's truly remarkable that he was able to make these groundbreaking discoveries with the limited tools and resources available to him, at that time.
Yeah.
But his story doesn't end there, right? Because I know that his work was eventually rediscovered and went on to spark the whole field of genetics. But how did that happen? How did a monk's forgotten research become the foundation of this scientific revolution?
That's an incredible part of the story,
Oh.
and one that we will definitely delve into.
So before we're talking about how Mendel's work, even though it was revolutionary, it was pretty much ignored during his lifetime. I mean, it's hard to believe that such groundbreaking research could just, kind of fade away like that.
Yeah, it really is remarkable, isn't it? But sometimes I guess, scientific progress, it's not a straight line. It can take detours, unexpected turns, And sometimes I guess it just takes the world a while to catch up.
To catch up to a truly revolutionary idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess that's a good reminder that even brilliant minds like Mendel can be overlooked in their own time.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, his work didn't stay buried forever. I mean, how did the world finally rediscover the genius of Gregor Mendel? How did that happen?
So fast forward, right, to the year 1900, 16 years after Mendel's death. 3 scientists, they're working independently in different parts of Europe. Hridoy de Vries in the Netherlands, Karl Correns in Germany, and Erich von Schermeck in Austria.
Wow.
All conducting research on plant hybridization.
So they were all on parallel paths without knowing it, kind of following in his footsteps.
Exactly. And as they, delve deeper into their own research, they each, in their own way, they stumbled upon Mendel's 1865 paper. Can you imagine, their astonishment when they realized that this obscure monk, decades earlier, had already, laid out the fundamental principles they were just beginning to uncover.
Oh, that must have been a mind-blowing moment.
It was.
To realize that the answers they were seeking had been, right there all along, hidden in plain sight.
Yeah. It was a remarkable convergence of scientific inquiry and a testament, I think, to the power of the scientific method, Even though they were working independently, they were all ultimately led to the same, fundamental truths.
So Mendel's work, once overlooked, was suddenly, thrust into the spotlight.
Yeah.
What happened next? Did the scientific community, did they just embrace his ideas, right away?
It wasn't quite that simple. While the rediscovery, it sparked excitement and it generated a flurry of new research, There were also those who were skeptical, Some questioned whether his findings could be generalized to other organisms.
Beyond peas, yeah.
Yeah, beyond pea plants.
So even after, being rediscovered, his work still faced a little bit of
Oh,
resistance.
yeah.
Okay.
But the weight of evidence, it was quickly mounting as more and more scientists, they replicated, they extended Mendel's experiments, and the universality of his principles, it became increasingly clear.
So his laws of inheritance weren't just applicable to peas. They applied to all sorts of organisms, including humans.
Precisely. That's why he's considered, the father of modern genetics, right?
Yeah.
His discoveries, they weren't just about peas. They were about the very language of life, the code written within our genes.
It's amazing how those simple experiments with pea plants revolutionized our understanding of heredity. But I've heard there was also some controversy surrounding his work.
Mm-hmm.
Something about his data being too good to be true.
Yes. That's often referred to as, the Mendelian paradox, right? So back in the 1930s, the renowned statistician and geneticist Ronald Fisher, he took a closer look at Mendel's data, and he raised questions about the statistical probability of obtaining, such like neat and tidy results.
So he was basically suggesting that Mendel might have fudged his data a little bit.
Well, it wasn't quite that accusatory, right? Fisher, he acknowledged Mendel's, brilliance, but he suggested that perhaps, consciously or unconsciously, maybe Mendel like oversimplified his data,
Hmm.
or even potentially excluded data that didn't fit his expected ratios.
So was Mendel like a scientific fraud? Did he like cook the book to make his discoveries seem more convincing?
Most historians and scientists, they don't believe that was the case. They point to, his meticulous methodology and his reputation for honesty and integrity.
Okay, so if he didn't, intentionally manipulate the data, then how do we explain this statistical thing?
Well, there are a few possible explanations. One is that Mendel, in his effort to, present clear and concise findings, he might have, simplified his data for publication, focusing on the patterns that most strongly supported his hypotheses.
So he might have like streamlined his findings
Exactly.
just to highlight the key things he was trying to convey.
Exactly. Another possibility is that Mendel, being a skilled experimenter, right,
Yeah.
he might have intuitively recognized which crosses were most likely to yield, clear results and just focus his efforts on those.
Oh, so he might have like zeroed in on the experiments that were most likely to reveal the patterns.
Precisely. It's also worth noting that, Fisher's analysis, it was based on a limited understanding of Mendel's experimental methods. Later research, it revealed more details about his procedures, which helped to clarify some of the statistical discrepancies.
So in a way, Mendel was kind of a victim of his own success.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his findings were so clear and so groundbreaking that they almost seemed like too perfect to be true.
Yeah, that's a fascinating way to put it. But ultimately, even with the statistical debate, the core principles of Mendelian inheritance, they've stood the test of time.
That's a testament to his work. But what did this rediscovery mean for the world? Like, how did Mendel's work, once forgotten, go on to shape, like scientific history? How did that happen?
Well, that's where things get really exciting. Mendel's rediscovery, it ignited a scientific revolution, that continues to this day. It's no exaggeration to say that, his work, it laid the foundation for modern genetics. And it's had a profound impact on countless fields, from medicine to agriculture.
Okay, but I have to admit, I'm still a little bit fuzzy on how, like a monk studying pea plants in the 1800s, could have such a far-reaching impact.
Yeah.
Can you help me connect the dots there? I mean, how did Mendel's discoveries actually change the world?
That's a great question, and one that we will delve into in more detail right after we continue.
Okay, so we've talked about how Mendel's work with these pea plants. I mean, it set the stage for this huge scientific revolution. I'm still curious, though, about how his discoveries have actually like touched our lives.
Yeah.
How has his legacy actually impacted the world today?
Well, his impact, it's truly far-reaching. Let's start with medicine,
Right.
One of the most significant contributions of his work has been in our understanding of inherited diseases.
Okay.
Think about conditions like cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, Huntington's disease. These are all caused by specific genes that are passed down from parents to their children. So because of Mendel, we can now understand the genetic basis of these diseases and even predict the likelihood of someone inheriting them.
Precisely, yeah. His work laid the foundation for genetic testing, which has become, a crucial tool in modern medicine. Individuals, they can now learn about their genetic predispositions,
Hmm.
make informed decisions about their health, family planning, even potential preventative measures.
Wow.
It's really about empowering people with knowledge about their own, genetic blueprint.
That's a pretty powerful application of his discoveries.
It's amazing to think that we can now like peer into our DNA
Yeah.
and gain these insights into our health thanks to, the work of a monk who studied pea plants over a century ago.
I know, right? It really highlights how fundamental scientific discoveries can have, these ripple effects
Yeah.
across generations, across fields of study.
Right.
But the impact, I mean, it goes even further. Mendel's work also paved the way for the development of gene therapy.
Gene therapies. I've heard that term. I'm not entirely sure what it means, though. Is that like editing genes to like cure diseases?
That's the essence of it. Yeah. While still in its early stages, gene therapy, I mean, it holds like immense promise for treating a wide range of genetic disorders. The idea is to, correct or replace faulty genes that are causing the disease. Imagine, being able to treat like conditions like cystic fibrosis or muscular dystrophy at their root cause.
That almost sounds like science fiction come to life. I mean, it's exciting, but it's also a little bit mind-boggling to think that we might be on the verge of like rewriting our own genetic code to cure diseases.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to the immense potential that lies at the intersection of genetics and medicine. And Madel's, meticulous work with those pea plants, I mean, that was the crucial first step on this path.
So Mendel's legacy in medicine, I mean, that's undeniable.
Yeah,
But didn't you also mention that his work has impacted agriculture? I mean, how so?
absolutely. Mendel's principles of inheritance, I mean, they've been like instrumental in revolutionizing how we produce food.
Hmm.
Think about all the crops that are, essential to our diet. I mean, wheat, rice, corn, fruits, vegetables. A lot of these crops, they've been genetically modified using techniques that stem directly from Mendel's discoveries.
Genetically modified organisms,
Mm.
GMOs, those have certainly been a topic of debate. So what role has Mendel's work played in their development?
His discoveries, they laid the groundwork for understanding how traits are inherited in plants, which is the foundation for modern plant breeding and genetic engineering.
Yeah.
We can now introduce like beneficial genes into crops, making them more resistant to pests, diseases,
Right.
improve their nutritional value, even increase their yield. And this has like huge implications for global food security, and sustainability.
So by understanding the principles of inheritance, I mean,
Yeah.
we can basically tailor crops to better meet our needs.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But I imagine there are like ethical considerations as well.
Oh, absolutely. Like any powerful technology, genetic modification, it raises ethical questions about safety, biodiversity, the control of our food supply. It's a complex issue. There's no easy answers, and it underscores, I think, the importance of responsible innovation.
Yeah.
When applying scientific discoveries.
It's fascinating how Mendel's work, which began with such a simple organism like the pea plant, has led to such profound advancements and ethical considerations that shape our world today.
It really is. Mendel's legacy, extends far beyond the quiet walls of his monastery garden. His meticulous observations, his groundbreaking discoveries, they continue to inspire uh, scientists. Shape medical advancements, influence how we feed the world.
From unraveling the mysteries of inheritance to sparking this genetic revolution that continues to this day. I mean, Gregor Mendel, the monk who became the father of modern genetics, truly changed the world.
He did.
It makes you wonder what other scientific breakthroughs are waiting to be unearthed, maybe hidden in plain sight, just like Mendel's work was for so many years.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of scientific inquiry, isn't it?
Yeah.
The pursuit of knowledge, the potential for discovery,
Yeah.
it's limitless.
Yeah.
And as we continue to, explore these complexities of genetics, I mean, we'll undoubtedly uncover even more amazing insights, that will shape the future.
Well, thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the world of Gregor Mendel. I mean, it's been a journey through scientific history and a testament, I think, to the enduring power of human curiosity and the profound impact that one person's dedication to scientific exploration can have on the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.